catch up on other issues. I'm sure he will love to contribute. And Lieutenant Colonel Alon Eviatar, former advisor for the Arab Affairs to the COGAT, intelligence officer, expert on the Palestinian arena, and media commentator. Thank you. And
did you move back? Did you move back?
Yes, I did my best.
Okay.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for the Jewish Press Club for inviting us, and thank you for coming. So I was initially supposed to be only a speaker, but I also became the kind of the mediator, and that means that I will have to be somewhat, less opinionated in order to do my job. But I won't save from you my opinions, of course, which I'm very passionate about. So we're talking about the so-called peace of the century, or the deal of the century, or the vision for peace, as the document title. And of course, we heard about this program for a long time, almost from the beginning of the Trump administration. We heard that he asked his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, to lead a team that will eventually bring us the deal of the century in the conflict that he thought was the holy grail of the conflicts. And if he solved that, he's supposed to get the Nobel Peace Prize. Because, of course, Obama received it only for expectations. So Trump, I think, was expecting to get it for something real. We were waiting for a long time for this proposal, and for different reasons it got delayed, and also the team have changed. We know that Jason Greenblatt recently left the team, and Avi Berkovich replaced him. We know that the two ambassadors became more part of the team, both our ambassador in Washington, Ron Dermer, and the American ambassador here, Mr. Friedman. And we also know that since the announcement of the plan, we heard rejection from the Palestinians. We heard mixed messages from Blue and White. As you remember, Benny Gantz, the leader of Blue and White, was in the White House before the release of the program. We had a meeting of the Arab League that pretty much rejected the plan, even though on a bilateral basis the announcements were not as strong. We had the meeting of the Organization for Islamic Unity that also rejected the plan, and we know we're going to have pretty soon a Security Council meeting that was called by the Palestinians. We also saw some terror events recently that are maybe linked to that. We'll hear from our expert later. So I will start by asking our panelists what do they think? Why the timing of this initiative was chosen right now, and what is the context for choosing that timing? Please, we'll start with seniority, of course, Professor Inbar.
I don't know why it was chosen. The timing. I think that it had to do something with the Israeli elections. It seems that Trump is eager to help Netanyahu as well as Putin. And this is probably the timing. Maybe it has to do something about the ripeness of the plan. They finally decided that this is a good enough draft to present. But I definitely don't think it has anything to do with American domestic politics, because the trouble in Senate were not really endangering the attempts to impeach President were not really serious. So he didn't need this plan in order to placate any allies. So it's connected to the good relations probably between President Trump and Netanyahu. I should give him credit. He cultivated this person for many years already. He has a good nose.
Eviatar, please.
Thanks. I want to tell you, Nadav, that you are one of the panelists. So the people will glad to hear your voice also, or your opinion. But anyway, it's a good opportunity for me. It's a good opportunity for me, and a good event to throw my cellular mobile outside and don't answer. But anyway, to be correct for exactly for answering for this question, I think that I was not surprised, to be honest, when I heard President Trump and Netanyahu standing in the White House and their statements about the new plan. By hook or by crook, it should be happened. Maybe before the election, the Israeli election, maybe after, but it seems that it's one of the, it looks like a president plan, like the previous president, the American president. I mean, we heard, if I should play the Palestinian side, remember Clinton plan and Obama plan and before Clinton, and now is Trump plan. And this plan the Palestinian side will throw it to the history or to the garbage of the history as the previous plan. So I think that nobody was surprised that there is a plan. The time and the schedule and the circumstances, someone choose that it should be now. It could be in April or May. In the end of the day, I think that the important thing is not the timing, but what's inside, what included, which chapter do we have in this plan. And from the beginning, it's not a secret, Trump was considered from day one, was considered by the Palestinian side as Israeli supporting or as a Jew. So he was not objective player on the ground by the Palestinian point of view. And for that, I think that for the Palestinian side, it's just one of the station on the timeline, if you want, during the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Okay, I'll answer my own question. I'm surprised to agree with Professor Inbar that I do think that the main reason for the timing was the Israeli elections. We know that Trump declared that he wants to come out with this plan, and we know that one of the things that really motivates Trump is to deliver on his campaign promises and other promises. But the timing for the delivery, I think, has to do with the elections and has to do with the fact that for some time, actually, the Israeli elections that kept on not being conclusive was a reason to postpone. But I think at some point, Netanyahu and his loyal ambassador in Washington thought that this timing could actually help Netanyahu's election. And because they were very coordinated, not only on the timing, but also on the substance, they thought that this is the right timing to come out of it with it. We know, for example, that other timing for Trump to deliver his promises, like moving the embassy to Jerusalem, had different considerations in terms of timing. I think that decision was actually more influenced by American politics. There was a tough campaign in Alabama at the time, and I think for Senate and I think for Trump evangelical right-wing base, the move to Jerusalem was a huge gift. Eventually did not help his candidate, but I think that was partially the reason for the timing, even though I think he was inclined to do that anyhow.
Let me please not disturb you for a minute.
Sure.
And I want to use a suitable word in Arabic that describe the situation. I will use it not just before my awful English, but I think that it describes correctly the situation. The word is mu'ammara. Mu'ammara in Arabic, who speak Arabic, I don't know here, but Mu'amara in Arabic, it's like conspiration. Okay, similar to conspiration.
Conspiracy.
Conspiracy, but more sophisticated than conspiracy, right? More sophisticated. Mu'amara is a secret plan that someone is planning against you, all right? Something like that, behind the screen. So by the Palestinian side, a Trump plan is kind of a conspiracy with the Israelis, right? Step by step, together, to throw the Palestinian side out of the game, to push them to the corner of the negotiation table, if you want, and to determine the end of the game, what are the rules should be. So it looks like, by the Palestinian side, like a mu'amara, like a conspiracy, and this is the main reason that they even don't want to participate in this dirty game, right? Dignity, conspiracy, and so on are part of the game, and I think that by the Palestinian side, they even, most of them, I don't believe that everyone, Palestinian senior, I mean, in the Palestinian leadership, even opened the 180 pages in the plan and read it. I'm not sure about that. So maybe Cyber-Rikat, all right, the head of the negotiation team.
Support unit, yeah.
Yeah. He's more than 25 years dealing with those plans, and he has a long experience. I think that they just read the title of the plan and not more of that.
We'll get to the Palestinians later, but
Yeah.
in terms of your remark about ripeness, I'm not sure that it was right, because I think that originally the idea was to try to coordinate it with the key Arab countries in order to create a situation where the Palestinians can't accept it, but the Saudis and maybe the Egyptians are not completely against it, and that would enable Israel to have a kind of normalization in the region without solving the Palestinian issue, and also enable some unilateral steps by Israel. I think that was not achieved as planned. I think, and I'm not an expert on the Arab world, but I had a feeling that at some point between Kushner and MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, there were maybe an understanding, but later on, when Mohammed bin Salman became more involved in a bad way in the Yemeni war and in the Khashoggi killing, and his father, even though not very healthy, thought that maybe he can't let his son lead the Arab world in terms of the Palestinian issue. So I think that in terms of ripeness, it wasn't ripe as they envisaged it, and that's why it was more a bilateral issue between the US and Israel and less regional program as planned in the beginning. Let me go to my second question, which is, if you
I'm not sure it was ripe with Israel. It was a misunderstanding. So, it seems that the Americans, had some kind of plan. They believed it was coordinated with everybody, and suddenly it ain't so.
No, I maybe I should make the separation between Israel and the Netanyahu government, because when I meant coordinated, I meant with Netanyahu. But it was clear that we had some misunderstanding even within the American team, because Ambassador Friedman was sure that Netanyahu can now bring to a vote a decision on annexation, while Kushner thought differently. I don't know if it was originally differently or only after he got the phone calls from the Arab countries, and also for Gantz, who said, "This is not what you told me when we were meeting in the White House." Yes. I want to ask the next question, which is maybe one of the most important questions when you put a vision for peace. Do you think that this program is bringing us closer or further from peace? Please, Professor Inbar.
Well, obviously, with Palestinian rejectionism, this continuous pattern, of course, it's not going to bring peace, at least in the sense, most people relate to the notion of peace. But in my view, it has a chance maybe to moderate somewhat Palestinian expectations, not immediately, in the longer run. Basically, over time, we see very slow, maybe too slow, learning process on part of the Palestinians. Once they wanted all land of Israel. In 1988, they settled for 47 borders, 40 years later. And now they seem to settle for, 67 borders. So we see a very gradual, slow acceptance on part of the Palestinians of the facts on the ground. So to a great extent, this plan may shower some kind of realism on the Palestinians that maybe after Abu Mazen, that's not such a long period, there will be somebody there that say, okay, let's try to be like Ben Gurion. I get something, let's take it, and we'll see afterwards what happens. I'm not sure that this will happen because the Palestinians so far have been clearly characterized by lack of pragmatism. So if this happens, then of course it will be easier to reach a modus vivendi, a better modus vivendi. I don't think that peace, in the sense that America and Canada live each one next together to other, is achievable in this area. Basically, we cannot expect any of our neighbors to live with us better than they live with their own Arab neighbors. And as we see, in the Middle East, use of force is part and parcel of the rules of the game. People use force against each other, not against other Arabs. So there is a limit, to what we can achieve within the prevalent political culture of this region. So maybe a small step, yes. Immediately, of course, it's not going to bring peace.
I want to see to look at the I would say the positive notes or the positive impact for or after Trump plan statement. First, the word peace, shalom, is backing to the table, right? Peace as something that similar shows or speak about the atmosphere of peace or the process of peace, or the word peace is again in our game. Second, it's I would not say opportunity or good opportunity, but kind of indication or maybe a beginning of opportunity or process to negotiate between the three sides, Palestinians, Israelis, and Americans. After a freezing of, I don't remember how many years, but after a long freezing, it could be a good opportunity. But I want to mention you that, from my experience, at least the difference between optimistic to pessimistic is that pessimistic is optimistic with experience, right? Or to be realistic, I think that this plan, in the end of the day, will not be something useful, will not be something that the two sides, and it's important to emphasize it, Palestinians, the PA, and the government of Israel will negotiate on Trump plan. It will not be in the middle between them. And we didn't mention, I think, not less important than the PA, but we didn't mention yet the Jordanians. And the impact of Trump plan is also on the Jordanian side, not just about the Palestinian side. So, meantime, when we are analyzing or try to analyze what's going on inside the plan and what does it include, I think that up to the Palestinian side, maybe the Israeli one, but up to the Palestinian side, this plan is not relevant. It's not relevant while we are dealing or speaking about Abu Mazen credential. And as Professor Inbar mentioned, I even don't think that after Abu Mazen, the day after Abu Mazen, it will be back to our town, or we shall negotiate about Trump plan. Even if we were speaking about the Palestinian seniors or the Palestinian leadership, which we know them as well, and they don't, as much I believe, they don't hold another or different national positions. While we are dealing with or speaking about the end of the conflict. So I have to be, I'm sorry about that, but I don't think that Trump plan will be something relevant. I live besides the media and, you know, the lectures and the panels and so on, but in the end of the day, your question was, if it could be something that the two sides will negotiate about it, I don't think so.
Okay, so I will answer my own question now. First of all, I want to make clear that when I'm talking about peace, what I'm really talking, and I'm saying it as a diehard Zionist, I'm talking about a two-state solution. For me, any other arrangement is not peace, and it's not only not peace in terms of what the Palestinians want or would they agree. I think it's any other arrangement is disastrous for Israel and for the Zionist dream of having both a democracy and a homeland for the Jewish people. And that's why I'm really considering everything. Does it move us closer to a two-state solution or further from a two-state solution? And I want to say that there are some positive things. For example, as you said, in the last two elections, the Palestinians were not an issue, and now it's back to the table, which is a good thing. I think that the fact that there is some kind of preparation of the Israeli public that we are talking about a Palestinian state, whether Netanyahu and Trump means it or not, I'm not sure, but I think in terms of an understanding of the Israeli people, that's important. I think it's also important that we're talking about both Gaza and the West Bank in terms of the Palestinian state, which for a long time our government tried to separate and create a situation where Gaza and West Bank will not be together. I think also talking about land swaps, except for the triangle, which I think democratically is unacceptable in terms of the Arabs within Israel, but in terms of the Negev and the land swaps, I think it will be part of any agreement, so that's a contribution. And the last thing, even though those neighborhoods in Jerusalem that were mentioned in the plan, in Aqeb, Abu Dis, and Shuafat, cannot be a Palestinian capital. They're not connected to the holy places. They're in no man's land. But the same
municipal border of Jerusalem.
I know, but but because they're over the wall or separation, whatever you want to call it, it's not really part of the life of Jerusalem, and it's one of the kind of absurds of the way the separation barrier or the security barrier was created, because now, even though it's part of Israel, Israel is not there, not in terms of police, not in terms of sewage, not in terms of nothing, and neither the Palestinians. So it's a no man's land, and it's an awful situation. So even though it's not going to be a real capital for the Palestinians, but the fact that it was mentioned that there is going to be a capital in East Jerusalem and there's going to be an American embassy, I think it's positive. What's totally negative, of course, is the assumption that you could achieve any agreement without a Palestinian partner, which is completely not acceptable and not sustainable for whatever agreement. I think that the idea to keep all those settlements in the middle is you can't really, instead of creating less friction, it creates much more friction. With all the respect to the roads and the bridges, eventually it will also not bring security, because it will be so hard, like we saw, in Gaza. before we pulled out. It will be so hard to really secure those places, so it's not even good for Israel's security. So I think that this plan is not bringing us closer to a two-state solution, but if we will have a different leadership after the elections in Israel and hopefully after the elections in America,
and maybe in the PA.
And in the PA, in the PA, I'm not sure that the change will be better or worse. Unlike Professor Inbar, I actually think that the Israeli public and the Israeli governments missed a huge opportunity with Abu Mazen or Abbas. I think Abbas is a real partner for peace, very different than Arafat, the leader that my boss negotiated with in Oslo, and another boss of mine, Ehud Barak, negotiated in Camp David. Arafat was indeed one day a terrorist and one day a statesman. Abbas is completely against violence and believes that the self-determination for the Palestinians should be achieved not through violence and terror. He thinks that the intifadas were a huge mistake for the Palestinians, and he actually giving orders every day to his forces to work with our security forces against terror.
Coordination.
So I think that we missed a great partner in Abbas, and I don't know who will replace him. So I'm not sure that the change there will be positive for peace, but definitely in Jerusalem and Washington. So I think that a different leadership, and here it's a key question, what will Gantz say? Because I think that his initial legitimacy to this program is not very good sign, unless it was only saying it in order to remain in good kind of contacts with the American president, or in order to be kind of vague before the elections. But as someone who is from the left, I know that one of the biggest damages to peace came from Ehud Barak after Camp David, when he said we have no partner because of his hubris. If I can't achieve it, nobody else can achieve it. And that's why the Israeli public completely missed the change in the Palestinian leadership and completely changed also the regional situation with the Arab initiative and so on and so forth. So maybe there are things in this program that we could use in the next stage, but the way it is presented now, without the Palestinians and with the borders the way they are drawn, it's not going to bring us any closer to a Palestinian state. Sure.
First of all, about trying to achieve a two-state solution. Basically, it doesn't depend upon Israel or the United States or whatever other actor. It depends only on the Palestinians. And unfortunately, the Palestinians do not meet the main test of statehood. Max Weber, a famous political sociologist, German, not Jewish, made a simple statement. A state is monopoly over use of force. As long as the Palestinians are not able to exercise monopoly over use of force, there will not be a Palestinian state, and it has nothing to do with what the Israelis or the Americans or whoever in the world can do. As long as they allow militias to roam their territories, as long as they allow Hamas to take over part of their territory, and even in Hamas-controlled areas, there is no monopoly over use of force. We know that there is a Palestinian jihad, and Hamas can easily say it's not me, it's them. There are a lot of militias here. By the way, this is not only a Palestinian problem. This is a problem of the whole Arab world. If we take a look at the map of the Middle East, you see many failed states: Somalia, Iraq, Syria, Libya. So in this respect, the Palestinians' political culture is not different from their Arab brethren elsewhere. Therefore, the whole discussion of getting a Palestinian state has nothing to do with us or with them. It must be a change in the Palestinians, and as long as they don't go for a civil war to repress the militias that do not accept central authority, will not have a Palestinian state. The second issue I want to mention, this is Jerusalem. And one of the attractions of the plan to Israelis is that it meets the Israeli mainstream consensus. in terms of the valley, Jordan Valley, for security reasons, but also for Jerusalem, which also has serious strategic significance. It's a linchpin to the Alon plan that connects us to the valley. And Jerusalem is, I take a look at polls, close to 70% want a unified, united Jerusalem. And to make it perfectly clear, in the search of peace, which I think peace is important, but there are other values which are more important. For Israelis, Jerusalem is more important than achieving peace. And if we'll have to fight another 100 years in order to maintain Jerusalem, we'll do that. And about the idea of dividing Jerusalem, just a few facts. Jerusalem has a Jewish majority for the past 150 years, more than 150 years. The Arabs in Jerusalem, the minority, about 60 to 70% are in favor of the status quo. What's happening in the city is a process of Israelization. Basically, Arabs learning more and more Hebrew. Arab high school kids joining more and more Israeli curriculum high schools. We don't have enough classes to meet the demand. The Arabs in East Jerusalem are fully integrated in the Jerusalem economy. I don't know if you are, most of you are Jerusalemites. You can meet them elsewhere in different positions. And they don't want to become part of a Palestinian state, exactly like the Arabs of Taibe or Al-Faham, that's stupid. Who wants to be part of this type of entity? The advantages of being in Israel are so much greater. And most people, including the Arabs in Jerusalem, are pragmatic, are not political. They're about, if I take a look at the Arabs in Jerusalem, 15% are Hamas, 15% are nationalists, and the rest wants to live.
Don't vote.
And therefore, the whole notion of dividing Jerusalem is just an unpractical, by the way, as giving to a Palestinian authority Taibe. The Taibe people, once you remove the border, I don't think it's undemocratic, but once you remove the border and include them in a Palestinian state, they'll pack, they put all their stuff in a car and move to Nazaret, they'll move to Jaffa. The same is true of the Arab Jerusalem. Who's going to push them back into the Supreme Court of Justice? Nobody. So basically, this whole idea of, exchange of population, it's not going to work. But basically, the Palestinian demand for East Jerusalem is a tremendous chutzpah. Jerusalem was never a capital of any Muslim entity. Of course, I understand fully why they want Jerusalem as their capital. A state with Jerusalem as its capital has certain international resonance. A Palestinian state without Jerusalem, it would be Zimbabwe, Nepal, not the same. But their appetites are too big.
I have to react. Even though I'm the moderator, you have a privilege.
You have a special privilege.
I'll start with the first demand. I once heard it from Yoel Zinger, who was negotiator in Oslo, and when he spoke at the Washington Institute, he was getting the question, both Rabin and Bibi, both of them saying security first or dismantling the militias first. So what is the difference? And he said, the difference is like when your son is asking to take the car in the evening, he wants the keys for the car, and you tell him only if you do your homework. And the question is, do you want him to do the homework? I think the Netanyahu government don't want the Palestinians to take out the militias. They want to separate, they want to keep the Hamas in control of Gaza and Fatah in the West Bank because they don't want the compromise. And I think that a different policy from Israel would have helped the Palestinians to both of if we wouldn't, because he knows the plan is not going to happen. This is the whole thing. You know, when by the way, when Dan Meridor from the Likud, when he lost the primaries in the Likud, he was asked by Nahum Barnea, why did you lose the election? So he said, I went from one branch of Likud to another, and I asked people, will you vote for me? And they said, no. I said, why? They said, because you're for a Palestinian state. So I said, but also Netanyahu said in the Bar-Ilan speech that he's for a Palestinian state. So they told him, but you actually mean it. So when Netanyahu accepts this plan, it doesn't mean that he wants a Palestinian state. He thinks that it's a great way to keep on maneuvering, both in terms of his political survival and in order to be able to keep his base happy with unilateral steps. But if we really wanted a two-state solution, first of all, the move out of Gaza, which I thought was the right thing to do, would have been done coordinated and not unilateral, which gave Hamas the power that they got, and we would move with the moderate Palestinians who want a two-state solution, who decided in '88 that they are not asking for more than the 22% of original Palestine, which means that with land swaps they would accept. By the way,
Olmert was different.
Olmert and Abbas, the difference between them was that Olmert was talking about 6.5% of land swaps, and Abbas was talking about 1.5. And then Olmert went away with the corruption cases and everything, but for 4% they would have agreed. So we have a Palestinian leader that understands, forget about 47, all I'm asking is 67 plus land swaps. We have a Palestinian leader that accepts the fact that the Palestinian state will be demilitarized. He accepts even the Arab Initiative paragraph on the refugees, which says just and agreed. Agreed means Israel has a veto right. And we say, no, you can't, because you are not doing this or not doing that. For years, we were dreaming that we have a Palestinian leader that wants to have their state more than they want to destroy us. And it did happen. And then rejection is moved from their side to our side. In terms of Jerusalem, it's not true. Jerusalem is divided. Those of you who will go to different neighborhoods, there are neighborhoods that the Israeli police are not even getting into. And I'm not talking about even about Israeli citizens. Jerusalem is already divided. I agree with you that the Holy Basin should not be divided, and we should have a more creative solution to keep all the holy places and to have some kind of a shared sovereignty. But to say that you're for a Palestinian state without accepting their real connection to Al-Aqsa, the real connection to Al-Quds, is, I think, completely ignoring the reality on the ground. But we have an expert for our world who will be able to remark.
But I have to tell you, Nadav, that few short comments, that my comfortable zone, I agree with that my comfortable zone is the Palestinian arena, not the Israeli one. But you are more expert than me, than all of us, about the Israeli decisions and positions. But when we are dealing about the Palestinian side, I think that it's kind of patronage a little bit. When we say those Palestinians, well, they will give up. They will come to the middle of the way. There will be a compromise. What's the problem? Get out $50 billion, yes, this is the offer of Trump plan, and we shall buy, but by this $50 million, we shall buy the vision. We shall buy their inspirations. We shall buy their rights, okay, up to their narrative. We shall buy the Palestinian narrative. We shall buy the Palestinian ethos by this money, quantity of a lot of money. If 50 million will not be enough, we shall put another $50 million. So I think that while we are dealing or speaking about the Palestinian national positions, inspirations, history, narrative, ethos, mythos if you want also, I think that the Israeli side looks a little bit not in the same stage, right? There is a difference between the point of view of the Israelis, the really point of view, and the point of view of the Palestinians. And I don't think that the word, if you want, the word compromise, right? When I try to translate it to Arabic, I don't find a suitable word. in the Arabic dictionary. I'm not joking, it's really. And I thought that, I think myself, but I asked experts for Arabic language better than me, and they didn't have any answer about that. The word compromise, as you know, there isn't in Arabic language. So while we are dealing about or speaking about the national positions, by the way, I know the materials that you spoke about, those results of negotiation between Olmert and Abu Mazen. I remember the papers, and I think that the swap question or the swap topic is not the only one that they didn't get together to the same agreement or the same understanding, if you want. I think that meantime, there isn't a real agreement between the two sides or real understanding, common understanding about anything of the hard, how do you say in English, asuta or something like that.
Gesundheit, isn't it?
All right. And one of the main national core issues, right? Political core issues. Jerusalem, just to mention for us, not far away on the Temple Mount, there is Al-Aqsa Mosque. Yasser Arafat was totally different from Abu Mazen, okay? But about the question of the future of the temple of Al-Aqsa Mosque, there isn't difference between the two personalities, between Arafat and Abu Mazen. And Abu Mazen and the other seniors in the headquarters of the PA, and the Palestinians, the 4 million Palestinians in Gaza Strip and the West Bank as well, and East Jerusalem, add please 400 or 300,000 each. Remember the statement of Arafat, and it's written in the Mukata in Ramallah and in the books in the Mukata, that the end of the conflict will be when the Palestinian side will put the Palestinian flag on the top of Al-Aqsa Mosque. All right? So I know that it's a statement and it's a beginning of, it could be a beginning of negotiation process and so on. But I think that if I hold the Israeli point of view, it's something that they can give up. What is it? A flag on the Al-Aqsa Mosque? It's just a symbol. They can put the flag on the Abu Dis building, all right? They have a Mukata also in Abu Dis, already exists. The parliament, yeah. It was a parliament before Ramallah, before they established the new parliament in Ramallah.
They have a great democracy.
Yeah. What is it for them? A flag? It's something, it's shit, all right? They can put it here, they can put it there. We shall buy this vision. We shall buy the interest. We shall buy it by a lot of money. Green papers from America. And I'm not sure that we can do it. There are a few meanings that we cannot illustrate it. We cannot touch it, all right? I mentioned before narrative and ethos and so on, but there are a lot of meanings that we have to try to understand or to think what's going inside the Palestinian street, but a cafe, a saloon, houses, small talk, all right, political stages, schools and universities and so on. It's not published in the media. It's not official national positions. It's something behind the screen or under the table, if you want. And under the table, I think we can find more authentic position, national position, than on the table.
I want to leave some time for questions from the audience, but only the prerogative of the prerogative that I was given. When my friend, an expert in Arabic, said that a compromise is not in the Arabic language, I remember the days when it was said the same thing about Egypt and Jordan. And I want to remind you that we are celebrating today, this year, 40 years with peace with Egypt and 25 peace with Jordan. But I really want the audience to have a chance now to ask questions. So when you ask the question, please remember that the question is a short sentence with a question mark at the end, and say who you are when you're asking the question. Yes, please. Yes, sir. Please, if you can, no, we can hear you. Yeah.
Identify.
Yeah.
My name is Efraim Inbar. For Professor Inbar's information, I wrote a book on Ben-Gurion, Principles of Pragmatism, which you may not have read. Of course, my doctorate at Columbia. The question is a very simple one. None of you have mentioned the Zionism mirror image of Palestinianism, and that is the right of return. To make it clear as a question, if we came to Arabs, to Jews, 1,000 years ago or 100 years ago, and said, take Zion out of your prayer book, as the original reform movement did in Germany, and this is our homeland, Germany, we wouldn't have given it up. How can we expect the the total Islamic and Arab world to give up the right of return? That's the question.
Yes, Professor Inbar.
That ties in with what you're talking about, the linguistic question of compromise.
Please, Professor Inbar. First of all, I think it's vice versa. The Palestinians are the mirror image of Zionism because we preceded them. But
that doesn't make any
no, let me answer, okay? And I fully understand their yearning for putting their flag on the Temple Mount. And this is precisely why I'm not optimistic about having peace between the two national movements, because the gap between them is great, and I don't think that it's going to be bridged easily. Actually, I would say something else. I think that the conflict will continue precisely because of the fact that the two societies still have plenty of energies to fight, to give their lives for things that they are dreaming about. We are ready to fight for Jerusalem. They are ready to fight for Jerusalem. Look at Hamas. So basically we have two national movements fighting over the same territory with still great energies. And this type of conflicts, it's not only a territorial conflict, it's, on top of it, it's religious and ethnic. So this type of conflicts end only when one side is tired. And I don't think that any side is tired yet. And I'm saying this as a social scientist, without giving justice to this side or the other side. So yeah, I understand they want to go, the key, like we pray for Zion and say next year in Jerusalem, I can understand somebody like them saying the same, but it's at my expense. It's a zero-sum game, it's not easy. So in this situation, and this is, again, a general observation, borders are being, for being a student of international studies, international relations, borders are function of power differential and demographic realities. And indeed, the Israeli appetite for taking over the whole homeland is basically curbed by demographic realities. that there are Arabs that we don't want to rule over them, we don't want to have them in our midst. This is the main sentiment, yes, of the Israelis. So that's what will happen. Eventually, it is a power struggle. That's it.
There is in the IDF, there is a meaning or an order, a known order, old one. It's called Pkudot Avor. Pkudot Avor, it means, will you translate to English, Pkudot Avor, it means I give you an order and you have to do it right now and that's all. You don't have any privilege to answer me, right? Something like that. Pkudot Avor. And why I mentioned it? Because people try to from time to time, similar to tell me that, or to tell us that, what's the big problem? If the Palestinian, the PA headquarters will decide to sign on Trump plan or another peace agreement or kind of arrangement, if there is a minority under the name of, the title will be the Islamic organizations like Hamas, Professor Inbar mentioned them, and Islamic Jihad and so on, they are 30% of the Palestinian society. Okay, what's the problem? There is Pkudot Avor, right? An order from Abu Mazen, from another leaders and so on. And the Palestinian side, everyone under the Palestinian flag will say, okay, I will do it. I will vote for that, right? In the election and so on. But it's quite different from the democracy political structure when the government of Israel decided, Ariel Sharon, Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, decided about the engagement from Gaza Strip. There was Israeli resistance, right? The right side and so on. But there is democracy. There is Pkudot Avor, okay? And everybody go to the same side. We don't have any option to plan for how would you say, merit inside the rebellion. So in the Palestinian side, in the Arabic states, you don't have this system, all right? The minority, the Palestinian minority is too big, okay, too big to be unconsidering. A body that you don't have to think about it, about his vision, about his opinions, about his beliefs, right? So I think that the system is so different that we cannot compare those political structures.
Okay, I'll just say a short, because I want to have another question and you raise your hand. I just want to say that I'm not saying it is as kind of, as a guess. I'm saying it with knowledge that I know the people around Abbas, and they all understand that the right of return is not going to be implemented. They're not going to give up the rights. But this is exactly the secret in diplomacy. My boss used to say that there are two things in life that you cannot achieve with open eyes, and that's love and peace. If you ask for everybody to say exactly, you will never get there. But Shimon Peres. But the Palestinians understand. I'm not talking about the people in the camps in Syria or but the Palestinians here understand that the right of return is not going to be implemented in the way that was envisaged. They want some kind of recognition of the world of the refugee issue. They understand that most of them will come back to the Palestinian state, and some symbolic number will go back to Israel per se. But I don't want to take more time. So, sir, please, the last question is yours.
Thank you.
My name is Walter Bingham. Your view about Abbas as a peaceful man, because he is in favor of security cooperation with Israel, which he has to, otherwise he'd be in trouble. That's living in cloud cuckoo land, sir. Because still pays the terrorists for terrorism, and he even visits the families of terrorists and consoles them. So he doesn't really act like a man of peace. And another...
Is it a question?
Well, does he?
Okay, so let's... please.
Last question, guys, everyone.
No, you want us to respond?
Question.
Yeah, I want you
Okay.
to respond.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the way, about the security coordination of Abbas called it as a holy interest.
Exactly.
It's a holy interest, and indeed most countries in the world and most leaders act according to their interest.
Yes.
And but I by the way, if you check if Israel is paying social security to the family of Baruch Goldstein, you find out that he was getting also social security. The payment that the Palestinians give
Excuse me, I have to stop you right now.
No, you can't stop me. No, you can't stop me. You can't stop me because I'm running this and not you.
Yeah, you may be running it, but you're running it.
Yeah.
I want to make